Welcome. It's just gone 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Wednesday, the 7th of February, and you are watching episode 121 of Regional Wrap. Regional Wrap, providing insight on the issues affecting regional Australia and giving a voice to regional residents. My name is Bill Bates, and join me again is Ken Jury, a former investigative journalist. After completing a cabin maker's apprenticeship, Ken went on to study journalism in marine and aquatic ecology. He was employed writing for the Adelaide Advertiser and had a Channel 7 weekly TV spot until about 1975. Ken also hosted his own radio show with top commercial South Australian radio station 5DN, where he produced and presented the program Marine Watch every Saturday morning for about 23 years. In 1983, Ken joined the South Australian Fishery as their journalist, where he produced their global South Australia fishing magazine that attracted readers from across the world. Ken routinely interviewed many of the fishery scientists for both the magazine and his radio show. In 2009, Ken and his wife moved to Gawler, on the shores of Lake Alexandrina, where he joined the local community radio station, 5EFM, where he went on to produce and present some 72-hour episodes, Counterbalance, with guests from across Australia. With Gawler being near the mouth of the Murray River, Ken became acutely aware of the issues facing the lower Murray, the lower lakes, and the Coorong. Already familiar with many of the sciences and officials engaged in the Murray Darling Basin Commission, Ken was soon putting his investigative journalism to good use. He has authored many papers and submissions on the myriad of issues facing landowners and the communities of the Murray Darling Basin and the South Australian irrigators, as well as residents and communities and businesses on the lower lakes and Coorong. Welcome again, Ken.
Thank you very much, Bill.
It was only in December we were talking on another episode, 115, and we're basically focusing on the effects of the Murray-Darling Basin plan, its long-running drain of irrigators' water into the Murray for ecological flows, environmental flows, and the situation in the lower lakes in regards to, well, this water is needed to keep the lower lakes as they currently are. But in this episode, we're going to look at what's the other options for the lower lakes as in survival and maybe even being more productive than what they are.
Well, that's a very good question, Bill. In fact, it's a whopper. Yes, there's a lot needs to be done at the exit end of the system, where the River Murray finishes up, of course, in the Murray mouth, and most of it, and into the ocean. Some of it, of course, goes down, chucks a slight lefty, if you like, as it comes through the barrages, depending which barrage we're talking about too. And there is a great fishery down there in the northern lagoon of the basin, and that supports quite a few commercial fishermen who seem to look after it very well, and certainly the catch rates seem to be pleasing to everyone, and so we do see fresh fish on the marketplace quite regularly.
One of the things is I've seen a few of the Facebook pages from community groups around the lower lakes were supporting and advocating for more flows from the Murray into the lakes, but I never really got an idea of what their key purpose was. For these people and for yourself, what do you think the main performance indicators are for healthy lower lakes? You know, is it sustaining the constant level of 75 millimeters of water, 75 centimeters of water in the lower lakes through the barrages? Is it keeping it fresh? Is it making it a reasonable fishery? I don't really see what any KPIs that have been sort of given by the government or anyone in particular in regards to why they want all this extra flow and what it's supposed to achieve.
That's a very good question, Bill, and it's one that upsets a lot of people when we get the state government here asking for more water to come down, when in fact, and that happens time after time, and in most cases, it's not necessary. Our growers up in the Riverland area, one in particular around the Waikerie area, a very good grower up there, he is certain that there's too much water going into the backwaters up there. It's being wasted. It's just evaporating and doing nothing good, no good for anyone. And that's the sort of thing and that really puts us off. And if you look all the way down the river and I hear the call for more water to be sent down, the fact of the matter is it's wasted. When it gets into the lakes, and it depends on the weather, of course, in an ordinary day, not overheated and so on, we probably lose about 800 gigalitres in a year if the year is fairly flat. That's what I'm trying to say. If it's a hot period or a hot season, it's not unusual for that evaporation to go sky high, and it can go up anything up to 900 gigalitres a year. And as we know, and we mentioned last time, the millennium drought, when we were hit badly, then I think the losses were something like 1,015 gigalitres. Now, if you're wondering just how much water that is, that's 100,000, I'll get it right, 1,015 gigalitres is 1,015 metres by a metre deep. So it's a lot of water. And we can't afford it. The water's very expensive. I mean, again, I know I said last time, based on water values at the moment, those lower lakes, if they're held at about 0.75, that water in those lakes is worth over $14 billion, 14.4 approximately.
And that's not producing anything.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. You do have to wonder, and we know, and I think, again, I covered this last time a little bit, when I wrote a letter to the department in Adelaide and said, look, I have two questions. One, I want to know how many licensed growers were taking water out of the lower lakes, and by how much in 1 year for whatever the number was. And they got back to me. It took them a while to get the answers, and I do understand that. But it came in as there were 166 growers, but they only used a fraction over 21 gigalitres combined. And so you have to ask yourself, where'd the rest of that water go? Well, they're going to say, of course, it's gone to the environment. That's often in the call when they ask for more water to be sent down as for the environment. It's not always the case, but it certainly is a bit too frequent for a lot of people. A lot of it, of course, goes out the Murray Mouth in their efforts to try and clear the Murray Mouth, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's not getting through. And in fact, just on that subject, I'm going to give myself a plug now and talk very quickly about my Better Way document. My Better Way for the Murray Darling Basin is the full story or full title. I mention in there, if the lower lakes are dropped by 20 centimetres, that's 840 square kilometres of lower lakes surface. If we lower that water by 20 centimetres, in any outgoing tide, we have up to 150 gigalitres of water that can go out with that tide and clear the Murray Mouth. And the beauty of it is we can do it as often as needed, and because we can replenish in the next incoming tide. That's when we become estuarine back down here, as we darn well should be. It's a disgrace, the water we're losing at the moment. I must say also, I'm very concerned about the department. I'm amazed. In recent times, we hardly see them out in the field. We do know that they've got a few problems elsewhere, and I'll just say with the word acid. I'm not going any further with that, but yes, we understand that, and you'll need to deal with it. But the point is, we can't keep going like we're going. We can't keep having other people, especially the government, asking for more fresh water to be sent down when our growers are complaining. They're fed up to the back teeth. It's about time this is fixed. Get over it, guys. Get some decency into this whole basin so that everyone can say, well, I'm rather proud of that.
Okay. In your mind and all your observations and investigations, what are the key criteria for the lower lakes? Is it keeping the lake covered with water to a set level? Is that a top criteria? Or can we afford to let it just be vary with the tide type of thing? Is it essential that we keep it as fresh water for some part of the environment that some people down there favour, whether it's, I don't know, maybe you just want to be a growth place for European carp that need fresh water. I don't know. But what do you think the real key criteria is for the people living around the lakes and also the general environment there? What must remain, and what can we afford to change?
Okay, look, I think we've reached the stage. In fact, we're almost going past it. We've reached the stage where we're not getting enough fresh water. We've been told by the best scientists across the globe that expect the worst with this climate change. We're only in the beginning of it at the moment. And so we should be rallying about what we're going to do. And what we should be doing is starting to work on returning those lower lakes to an estuary. And there is a certain amount of work that have to be done to do that, but it's not complicated. It will mean putting in one more lock, and that will be go in somewhere between Wellington and Tailem Bend. We can put it anywhere there. And people say, how's that possible? You don't know about bedrock. Oh, yes, we do. We know about bedrock. We don't need bedrock. If you look at the Hindmarsh Island Bridge, which is a pretty chunky bridge, goes across from Goolwa to the island, that bridge is supported by friction piling. All of the piles that are friction driven, they're driven down to the point where friction around the pile, not at the bottom, around the pile, grabs it to the point where it can't be driven any further. And so she puts your series of those in. And this is what's happening across the world with big bridges and other things that they're putting across rivers and creeks and so on. And it works very well. It certainly works down here in Goolwa, and there's no reason why it wouldn't. So that's the first thing we got to do. The second is that while the department is doing some work on the Goolwa barrage, there's a fair bit to do yet. We've suggested to toss away those terrible concrete logs that needs a crane and two rail lines, of course, to cart it on right across that basin, that particular barrage, and that it's too cumbersome. It's too, it's too late. By the time they get 2 or 3 logs out, whatever they're trying to achieve has gone past them. So I have noticed in recent times the odd photograph showing up somewhere or other where it's the South Australian Department of Environment and Water are testing stainless steel gates. And these stainless steel gates are different, built differently for each bay. I think they're trying out that type and the other type and so on. The idea from what I saw with one picture was that the gate's on the bottom. That's the best place for a gate, for a big river, not up on the top, for all sorts of reasons, because it keeps that whole bottom on both sides clear. Once we've cleaned all that up, and while that's happening, we need to look at Bird Island. And Bird Island is in the exit part, if you like, of Mundu Channel. And Mundu Channel is one of the shortest channels. It actually starts on the southern side, southwesterly side, if you like, of Lake Alexandrina. And it's not far to get down to the barrage. It's only, it might be a kilometre, wouldn't be any more. And then from the barrage down to the exit point into the Coorong, that's another short distance too. And that's where we're going to have to do a little bit of D9 work and knock out a few small channels. And that's because of Bird Island. Bird Island was in the exit point of Mundu, of course, and the early maps in the 1800s show just how shallow it could be. And in that time, there was a small blockage right in the middle of, of that exit point for the Mundu Channel. And the depths there around that whole little island was quite deep. But the point was the little island was only about the size of a kitchen table. Today, that's a couple of hectares and it's got vegetation on it. It's not without the fact that we can't move it. It would be an easy move. And because we can get heavy equipment across the bridge onto High Marsh Island, the home and host to do that job and clear that so that we can get flows from Lake Alexandrina directly to the Murray mouth, because that's where it'll exit and go across the Coorong and straight to the Murray mouth to clear them.
Okay, I'll just show a couple of slides here. This is the area we're talking about, and we've got Madu Island here.
Yep.
Now, the long way around it is the Gorge Channel along here, around this way is a much bigger channel, but because it curves, it's a pretty slow outlet to the thing. And then you've got the Mundu Channel, which is very thin and choked to the mouth of the Murray here. And what you're talking about is we need to get a better clear path from the Murray mouth to this point near Sturt Point.
Yeah, right where you've got your arrow. That's right.
So we need a better pathway and a more straight line. So the volume of water can can pick up a bit of speed and clear the channel. And because in the aerial shot over here, which is also from you, you can just see, the mighty Murray isn't exactly the mighty Murray at the mouth, is it? It's not like the Mississippi flowing out to the sea. This is a pretty choked up network. Well,
the line across the water in the top right hand corner of that picture is the barrage, of course, the Mundu barrage. So we're not looking at great distances. We're just looking at little necks of land that we've got to chop through. And the biggest one, of course, is at the bottom here, where it's written original land boundary, where that red line comes around the end. I put that there as a suggestion that we shouldn't venture any further to the left, but somewhere through there, and that'll get right to the Murray mouth, and the mouth will be clear.
And because it will have a good flow, instead of meandering so much, it will just have a good flow to push out. These islands over here, Madu Island and I think Bird's Island is somewhere further over there. But
there's Bird Island on the right hand side. It's the second one down from the top.
Second one down from the top.
Yeah.
These are all sand, but so they're not as though you've got to dig bedrock or anything like that.
That's right.
It's a fairly easy sort of loading system in regards to if you want to haul it away, or maybe you can even dredge it, to a pot. You probably with sand and plenty of water available, you can actually sort of move it by pipe to somewhere. And I presume there's market for good sand somewhere, especially while it's still washed with fresh water.
Well, we sell a lot of glass down the way.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can see, can't you, Bill, that we can have that sand shunted all over the place, and with some heavy machinery without any difficulties at all.
And we can also make knolls out of it and things like little hills and that people can stand on and look at the new Murray mouth.
That's
Just
right.
one question before we go. I would like to talk about the barrages as they currently are. Now, this picture I've got here, which side is the seaside? I presume the seaside is over
Where
where
your arrow is, that's right.
on there. That's the seaside, and this is the lakeside, and
That's
this is the concrete structure of the barrages.
They're
Now,
the concrete logs I'm talking about.
yep. And this is a line that you can put the crane would come down to lift the logs if you wanted them.
You can see the lines, yep.
So just as a matter of interest, when you talk about replacing with gates or stainless steel gates, we'd only be talking about, I mean, the barrages, there's several different barrages, but we'd only be talking about a small section of barrages that would need to be changed over to the new gate system, wouldn't we?
I think that's a fair point, actually. I guess it depends on volumes and at what time of the year and so on. But I don't think there's any need, Bill. I think this is what you're coming to. There's no need to change all those systems or all those bays, if you like. But we need enough in there that so that we can manipulate it, when necessary, in flood time in particular, of course. And I was very impressed with the pictures I saw of the gates that they have in mind, especially if they can operate them from Adelaide, and the gate is on the bottom.
Well, that's right. Then they can set it, or you could also have things like remote timing and that, so to be synchronized with the different tides and that, what you wanted to either get inflow or outflow.
That's right, exactly right. And so we can then, once we got all of those four things done, we're ready to let the ocean in. And I mean, here it is. And, at last, we're getting a lot of people coming around to the fact that we've got to do something, and the ocean has the answer. The Great Southern Ocean, as it's known worldwide, is the most pristine ocean on Earth. And I don't know what they're worried about. During the Millennium Drought, I was quite surprised that the department would not consider allowing a few inches of that water in to cover the acid. But no, it'll kill everything. It'll kill all the grasses, the animals, goodness knows what else. No, that's unfounded. In fact, ocean water has a liming effect as well. It would have assisted, and it would have saved a lot of money. Look at the millions that was spent on building these big banks right across the River Murray near Clayton. They actually blocked that off, that passage of the Murray that comes through there. They blocked it off. They had to find enough dirt on Hindmarsh Island to do it. Well, of course, one of the people over there that was looking for a new hole for another place to extend his marina, he's right in it. He did well. And they got their dirt. But of course, it caused the problem afterwards because it had to be removed. Now, to this day, I couldn't tell you where it went. I don't mind anyway.
Okay, just going back to the estuarine environment. I mean, most people with even the basic knowledge of river systems and general conversation with other people who lived around, they're the most abundant marine environment you could possibly get. You've got a mixture of fresh water and salt water. You've got that's usually a great place for breeding for the fish and that. It's also it can be an extended nursery, and you'll find that some fish can go circulating in either the salt water or the fresh water for a limited time, depending on what sort of they are. And then, like you're saying in your last interview, the way it was before, as an old estuarine environment, there used to be layers. The salt water and the fresh water layered itself, so the fish could move within that layer, depending what their species were.
That's right. That's quite right. In fact, the commercial fishermen back before the barrages, they used to come out. There used to be about 2 people in the boat. And at one stage, there was some 40 licensees in the big lake there for quite a while. But they had a tasting bottles, as they called them, in each of the boats. They had some unique ways of sending this bottle down the bottom with the cork in it. The one I spoke to, they had a tomahawk head lashed to the bottle, but it worked. It was enough weight to send that bottle down to the bottom. Mind you, they weren't in deep water. They were only in at 1 or 2 meters, or perhaps a bit more. And then they found a way to release the cork down the bottom. The bottle will fill, and then they'd bring it up. And of course, they'd taste it. If it was fresh water, then they'd be putting out their nets ready for Murray cod. And then they'd move about 200 or 300 metres, not much more, and they do the same thing. And if it was estuarine water, then they'd be putting out other nets or whatever they were using at the time to catch the mulloway. And that's how they did it every day of the week. And a lot of them never had to move out of that big lake. They were quite happy with what they were getting there. And so were the fish people in Adelaide.
Well, I did read an article there not so long ago, and it besides the 40 licensees, it actually supported about 100 people working, because if you're getting a reasonable catch on a reasonable basis, it's not just the fishermen, it's the wholesalers, it's the transport to take the fish away to Melbourne or Adelaide or wherever. And then it's the fish shops that sort of benefit from it. So the employment multiplies, and then of course you've got recreational fishers that like to throw a line as well. But I'd just like to share this set of photos that you sent me.
Yep.
Now, this is the area we're talking about, and there's Lake Alexandrina and the Murray Mouth. So we've got the big Southern Ocean environment here, and the lake environment there. But this is pictures from probably about 1920, I suppose, by the looks of it.
Yes.
And this is the typical boat that was on the lakes, and as you said, there were probably about 40 operating. They probably just had a crew or two at the most, and just in the safe water of the lakes, there wasn't much drama. But
those boats at jetty, Bill, that's at Malang Jetty.
Oh, yes.
And it was only this last weekend, we had some visitors down for a while, and I took them out on that jetty a little bit, didn't go right out, but that was enough. And stood there, and I said to them, can you imagine 5 tonne of mulloway coming in here and sort of hiding under the jetty and around the piles and goodness knows what? And, they were amazed, and I said, well, there was a meeting on just across the road in a building there, a fisherman's commercial meeting, and one of them was in the doorway, and he heard a ruckus under this jetty. So he went back to the meeting and told them what was going on, and they all raced over. They chose 2 of the boat operators to get their nets out and their boats untied and surround this school of fish. And what you're looking at in the foreground, in the bottom picture, is actually 5 tonne of mulloway that came in, and they spent 2 days and a night, I think it was, getting those up out of the nets onto that particular jetty you're looking at. And in the top left-hand corner, that's William Woodrow. He was one of the commercial fishermen there, and Victor Woodrow, his son, who used to go with him during school holidays and so on. But that big mulloway he's got there, that weighed 92 pounds dressed. Yes, that's a big fish, and not uncommon in those areas.
But you don't catch anything like that these days.
Well, you can.
But it's rare.
It's a pretty rare. I mean, you've got to be out.
And you won't catch it in the lake.
That's in Lake Alexandrina, of course, at Malang. Exactly.
Yeah, so they're not. The environment's not healthy for them in there, so they don't get that. In regards to the plan to sort of, I have seen some papers in that sort of suggest that just rip out the barrages and let nature take its effect. But that would put you at the vagaries of the tide and things like that. So retaining the barrages is sort of a must-have, but we can obviously be a little bit more manoeuvrable in regards to what level we maintain at times in there.
Well, I think I should come in here. It's going to be necessary to wherever we can to keep the AHT about 0.75, regardless of whether it's ocean or freshwater in the lakes. And that's because it's governed basically by ocean water. And certainly our places, our concrete going across the rivers further up, but we've at all these locks, we've got a series of weir pools, and no different with the lower lake. That is a weir pool because it has a regulating weir behind it further up. So they're all weir pools now, and most of them are manipulated, of course, by man, and they've done that for a reason, so that growers upstairs, of course, all their piping and so on has to be at the right level to get the right right sort of water and so on. It's all got to come together that way. But yeah, so we look forward to the day when really it'll come to its sense and turn these lower lakes back to an estuary like they used to be. Now, before the barrages were built, the estuary down there was quite large near the Murray mouth. It spread out much more to the southeast, if you like, down that way towards the Coorong and so on. It was different, and the Coorong was different, of course, and so was the Southern Lagoon, which is in all sorts of strife today. But Southern Lagoon would have been much more alive in those days, and the estuary itself, in the true sense, was much larger than what we got now when we've got the barrages, which go for a bit over 7 kilometres from one end to the other, and so on. Yeah.
So getting the salt water into the lakes, is the height of the tides enough to allow inflows to keep it at that 0.75 metres, or isn't the tide high enough to do that? Would it have to be pumped or that from the sea to get it into that level?
They'll probably try and keep it at that one level, and that's understandable, so that it makes things work. I mean, then of course when the high tides are finished, they'll lock the gates, and then sometime later, if they decide that they want to like skim the top, if you like, skim the top of the lower lakes for cleanliness, perhaps. Maybe a bit of rubbish in there. It's not looking that pretty. You can improve it. So then what will happen then under what I've written up is that we'll lower the 840 square kilometre lower lakes and the channel, of course, down to Goa by 20 centimetres. And by doing that, that will give us 150 gigalitres when we open the barrage gates on the outgoing tide. It'll give us 150 gigalitres for several hours as that tide's going out to clear the Murray mouth. They've tried for years and years and years with all sorts of potents and goodness knows what. I remember David Drevenman, who used to be with the department, of course. That was one of his things he wanted to defeat before he retired. He didn't quite make it. He did try, though. I think on the last effort he tried, he got something like 75 to 80 gigalitres. It may have been, it wouldn't have been any more anyway. And he came down for that event. He said he was disappointed. You could see it in his face. We don't need to worry about those things because we can manipulate this as we like. And the beauty of it is we know the sums show us that we can give the Murray mouth, I should say, a good cleanup with 150 gigalitres. We may find that we can do that in less than a 6-hour tidal movement, maybe less, and that's even better for us when we try. Yeah.
But the thing is, you can actually do that every tidal movement. You could actually afford to push this 100 odd gigalitres out every time until it was reasonably in good condition, the channel through the mouth, and then you would probably get into a situation where you wouldn't have to use that volume all the time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, that's true. And of course, you know, we could try 100, as you said, but it may need, may find out, in fact, that we might have to go to 150. I'll be surprised if we do, because I don't think we'll need it. But yeah, at least I've written it that way, and I you know, I've given some latitude there. But I think that's all it needs. And, you know, I'm surprised when people come to Gore and they look at the barrages, they walk out over them, they could see how they work and everything else. And yet I still hear people say, we've got to pull the barrages out. For goodness sake, what are we going to do then? Well, I'll tell you what will happen. You take the barrages out on an incoming tide, you're going to get the ocean push hard up against the flows of the River Murray, and it'll go back to what it used to be. It'll finish up, you'll get estuarine water high up in some of the towns, if you like. No need for that. Not only that, you're going to upset the infrastructure of 4 towns down here. And I'm talking about major infrastructure. We're talking in the billions over the years. It's cost them billions to put it together, and how well they've done it too. But there are 4 towns that have got that. We're not thinking of those people, and we damn well should be. There's no excuse. The barrages stay. They have to stay, and they will stay. And we need to deal with them too. We'll need to, you know, improve them. Eventually, we'll need to re-heighten them. They'll have to go up degree by degree. Some way we'll come to a way to do that, no doubt. The engineers will have a look at that and they'll work on it. And so that we can keep up with climate change and, of course, ocean rising.
The townships around the lake, they're sort of set up or dependent on the lake height being, you know, 75 centimetres depth. So you've got a constant shoreline. So that's, but of course, if you're going to let outflows go and it drops 20 mils, no, 200 mils, that's not a catastrophic problem for them, is it? They can deal with that sort of level of change between the barrages being open to let the seawater in and let out.
That's quite right, Bill. And the other thing, of course, is if we let 150 gigs out to clear that Murray mouth, then on the next incoming tide, if it's a reasonable tide, then we open the gates to let some of that back in. We want to replenish, and we can do that quite often. And seawater's free. It doesn't cost anything.
And it's pristine seawater as well from the Southern Ocean.
Pristine as well, and don't the animals that are in it know it? Exactly.
Just going on to estuarine environment with bird life, I would expect there would, if you return it to an estuarine environment, the species of birds that could operate within that estuarine environment would be somewhat different to freshwater. But has there been any conversation with people from, you know, ornithologists and things like that in regards to what the wildlife situation would be, besides the marine fisheries, but the native animals and birds in regards to what impact that would have on them? Because I've seen a situation, because I've talked to the people up in the Ord River, and what with the Ord River, with that constant level of between the Lake Argyle Dam and the Irrigation Dam 55 kilometres downstream, that sort of kept at a constant level and is allowed to create more wetlands. And what they saw over time, although this is all freshwater, of course, they saw not only a 50% increase in bird life, they also saw many more species arrive and continue to arrive there. So there's advantages if the water's sort of there. Would there be seabirds that would take advantage of that estuarine environment?
They certainly will, and that's forecast. No doubt about it. Estuaries across the world. People that know estuaries really well. And there are a lot of books on estuaries, by the way. It's amazing how many people are very keen to find out about an estuary. They're one of the most profitable systems you can find around any coastline. And it doesn't matter where you are. And if you talk about the bird life, when we change things here, there will be a slight change in the bird life, but not a big change. Yes, we're seeing cormorants at the moment down here, dozens of them. And yet, you know, we wonder sometimes, it's interesting when we find that the ECU level in the Goulburn Channel, if you like, and the lower lakes has a cap on it of 1,000 ECU. That's electrical conductivities, of course. And you're bubbling around with 1,000 ECU. And yet, my colleague down here, Ian Rowan, Bachelor of Science with honours, he and I have been looking at their beacons down here, and they've got beacons everywhere, up and down the Coorong and up and down the river and so on, around the lakes. And we keep thinking of the 1,000 cap, ECU cap. And here it is, we've got written data from these machines, and we're measuring ECUs, or they are, from 40 to 50,000 ECU, and yet they've got a cap of 1,000. They're not looking pretty flash. I've got to say, they're not, and it's a disgrace when you think that that's the sort of things that they lay down and then they don't abide by it. It took a while to find that 1,000. In fact, I found it twice. One was in a Hansard paper as well. Yeah, it's but there are hundreds. I had a few people down over the weekend, and I showed them some of the readings and they were absolutely staggered to think that ECUs. That's of course where the ocean is getting in. The ocean can get in all sorts of ways. And you often see it behind the barrages, particularly the Goulburn barrage, and that's because that's the one I live nearby. And no doubt it's leaking. It does leak quite regularly. I know I've seen a picture of the Teewitchery barrage. That's the largest one, way down the other end, where the wind is off the ocean is so strong it's actually pushing the Coorong water over that barrage into Lake Alexandrina. Now, what's important with all of this? Well, let's talk about birds again. The birds, the cormorants know when the ocean's got into the freshwater. It almost beats the ECU device that's measuring all this. They line up, they fly in, they know exactly when to come, and they've just been in the last few weeks. And the visitors down on the wharf are quite proud to see that these birds are mingling amongst them. Of course they are, because some of the little boys and girls down there are doing a bit of fishing and pulling up a carp or two. And I don't think these birds are too worried about what sort of fish it is, as long as it's a fish. But the point is, those birds do know. They tell the story. And Ian Rowan and I often laugh about this, that really we don't need to go to the beacons. We'll just watch the birds. They'll tell us when.
The other thing, I just mentioning European carp. I just don't get it. Why anyone would want European carp in the system? I mean, they're an exotic marine animal that shouldn't be in our environment at all.
Right.
They're absolute bloody destroyer of the river bottoms and the grasses and that.
Yeah.
They displace so many of the native fish. Why is there so much sort of emphasis on, I don't know, what is he, hairy carp and bloody having carp? There seems to be people in South Australia that are happy that the carp are there. I don't get it.
Well, yeah, no, and there's a lot of people don't either, Bill. But the point is that it seems as if we don't have anyone with the brains here to work out how to do it. When I was with fisheries for 12 years, we did some work up in the coalfields in Lee Creek in a retention dam that was full of water, and it was also full of carp. And so we went up there with all sorts of electrical things, and I watched them for a while, and I thought it was fascinating. What a way out. Yeah, that was just one trial. There's been many a trial. And you know, in recent years, we've heard the stories about getting something that actually treats the fish so that it, eventually it's the end of life. They're still a bit worried about what they're doing because they don't know what the end result will be. And I have to say, I doubt whether they'll ever know what the end result will be. And carp, yes, they're a pest. They're a terrible fish. The only joy for anyone is for the people for fertiliser, or the young people who love to catch a fish for the first time.
Yeah, but that's no good for anything else. It's not good for eating or anything.
Of course, yeah, well, I agree with that. Yeah.
Not when you've got a choice of barramundi or something like that. That's for sure. You've got to be desperate. But there again, I suppose for a lot of people in Europe at times were desperate for a feed. So they
Well, I noticed your crocodiles eating your barramundi the other day.
Oh, that's another story. I mean, we've got people up here, who think crocodiles are more important than people. And as far as I'm concerned, every crocodile south of the Daintree and south of Broome needs to be removed. And let them have the other. But just on that topic, I mean, Northern Territory is claiming that there's anything up to 100,000 crocodiles up there now, so that's a bit of a worry. But getting back to our little carp situation, is there a lobby group or anything like that, or is there some people who sort of fighting tooth and nail for the preservation of carp or something, or what is the deal with South Australians and carp?
Okay, look, the best I can offer there, it's pretty ordinary, if anything at all. It seems to me as if when this carp business exposes itself again, it seems to be coming from Canberra or somewhere like that, where they have apparently some people that are trialling the eradication of these fish. And then it goes all quiet again. We get all excited that maybe they've got something, but no, that's not the case. So we duck our heads and we wait again. And yeah, that's a sad fact, but that's how it is at the moment. There's so much, Bill, we've got to fix up with this whole system. If you don't mind, I want to touch on something else. Today or yesterday, ABC news, water-intensive almonds, now the largest crop grown in the Lower Murray, amid calls for a moratorium. I was reading in this article and with interest, and there was a picture on the cover of it, but more importantly on page 3, it's not very long, almonds use an average of 12.5 megalitres of water per hectare per year, according to the Almond Board of Australia. More water than any other irrigated crop in the Lower Murray. Now try this one for size. Independent analysis by Victorian researchers shows nearly 7,000 litres of water are required to produce a kilogram of shelled almonds. A single 1.2 gram almond kernel, I'm sure you know what we're talking about here, requires 8 litres of water.
That's more than a cow does.
Water. So next time you sample an almond, just think of that, Bill.
Yeah. I think the big thing is with all this thing with the Murray Darling Basin and the continued efforts to take water off of growers in Victoria and New South Wales. Being removed from that, I'm up here in Queensland and I've lived in Victoria, but I haven't lived in South Australia. It seems to me that it's always one-way traffic in regards to it's the Victorians and New South Wales people who have to surrender water and do something for the thing. There doesn't seem to be a focus on, well, what can South Australia do in regards to this issue? And Canberra makes a big play of it. And the other thing is you've got 12 senators and they sort of, it doesn't matter what party they are with, they seem to be very focused on ensuring South Australia gets its way in, no matter what it is. So do you think there should be more focus from the South Australian government and the other politicians in regards to looking at what they can do to make the situation better?
I'd agree with that, but that's a big ask. I'm not obliged to go in too deeply with this. I think for a while, I've been thinking it for quite a while, actually. I think the department has got a few problems that they need to deal with. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. You try and get to speak with someone, it's impossible. If you try to get to the heaviest in the department, you'll find that someone else will answer the phone and tell you to ring the minister. That was the results of my last call only about two weeks ago. Yeah, it's not good. This whole thing needs to be lit up so that we can all see what the hell's going on, so that we can get this whole mess fixed. Be brave, guys. Come out of it. Let's go and get with it and do it. It's no good like it is at the moment. You're running wild all the time. You know, it's a big guess job, and it's a bit like a bit disappointing with the Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, where I see, according to literature, that a lot of their thinking about how much they'll send here or there is dependent on people in the field and so on. So there's so much we've still to learn, of course, about this, and that's one thing that surprised me, because I've seen a few, in times I've seen flows that have really gone astray, totally.
Well, the whole plan looks at trying to get some 3,250 gigalitres per year down to the lakes. Now, that's been done over stages, but we've seen situations in Victoria where a lot of sheep producers have gone because they haven't got the water allocation for feed pens and things like that. You've got the rice growers in New South Wales. You've got other irrigators and farmers and that already been affected. Now this latest lot to get it up to that full 3,250. That's a lot of productivity that Australia's going to miss out on. And considering how the government's always talking about, Australia can be the full food bowl of the world, and yet it seems to be hell-bent in stopping food producers. It doesn't matter whether it's in Queensland or New South Wales, Victoria. It seems to be all their actions seem to end up reducing our food production. With
Yep.
going to an estuarine system, can we reasonably alleviate the drag on the irrigators in New South Wales and that, so they can get back to their core business of being food producers and good managers of the environment?
Well, Bill, that's one big question, of course, an enormous question that would take a lot to get through. Having said, talked about almonds a moment ago, it was interesting to see that almond growers in Victoria, and I think we've got some new ones in South Australia too. I'm pretty sure that approval was given not all that long ago. But it's interesting in Victoria, at least, it seems because of the availability of water to grow almonds is kindling down to the point where they're in strife, or it's an ugly scene for them. I heard, or in fact read, that Tasmania has been approached about putting a pipe up to Victoria, for goodness sake. I mean, you have to ask yourself, where's this all going? Where is it? For goodness sake, give our growers, our decent growers, our food growers, a go. These people that really toil hard. If you get out amongst them, you'll see it for yourself. I kid you not. And no, they deserve a lot better than this, Bill.
Well, just an interesting point aside is, Australian rainfall. The mainland of Australia, if you take out Tasmania, on the mainland, the Murray Darling only gets 6% of the Australian mainland rainfall. We up in northern Australia, we get nearly 80% of the total of Australians' rainfall. Maybe people should start investing, putting almond farms up in northern Australia. I don't know how they like the tropics or anything, but we're certainly not short of water. What we're short of, and we have been for a long time, is the will and the vision for good water projects. It seems we just balk at building a dam, controlling irrigation systems. We're fortunate a lot of this stuff was done pre-60s and that, before the environmental movement got on, because we'd never be in a situation, we wouldn't probably have a dam if these people were around all those years ago. But I'll just touch on the difference between today in regards to people being visionary compared to our forefathers. And in regards to water, I always push the barrow about Western Australia, because I come from Western Australia, and the fact that in the 1890s, Western Australia had only just become a self-governing colony, and John Forrest and the cabinet went out and borrowed £2.5 million.
Mhm.
Now that's $40 billion today. And they only had about 50-odd thousand people to depend on to repay that back over time, whatever the scale was. But they built two dams, the Canning and the Mundaring Dam, put in 500 kilometres, more than 500 kilometres of pipeline, 4 pumping stations, and that went to the Kalgoorlie and the Goldfields area. Now, that infrastructure is still there today. Kalgoorlie is still producing mineral wealth. It's still gold, but it's also nickel and that as well. Now, that's earned back for the people of Western Australia and Australia heaps more than it was ever invested. But we don't seem to have that sort of vision anymore for anything in regards to water projects, and that's really a bit of a worry in regards to these days they think of every reason why you can't do something rather than can do. And that's probably the same situation you're in with the lower lakes. It's
Absolutely.
we can't do this, we can't do that, you'll upset this.
That's rubbish.
But instead of saying, well, this is what needs to be done, do it.
You know, Bill, it's a good argument, and this is one I love to debate on occasions. The fact is that when voting time comes up, we don't take much notice, do we, who we're voting for? How much do we ask of that person? What's your background? What are you good at? What can you know, how far are you going to go? Where do you think you'll sit? And so on. And that's the problem today. Some of the comments that are coming out from various politicians just absolutely sicken me. They have no idea what they're talking about. And that seems to be the case the world over. Yeah. I mean, you can find some good people too, but there are a lot of people that they're not right up with what they're supposed to be doing. And that's the case at the top end of South Australia at the moment. I'm very disappointed that our Premier hasn't taken a better interest in our water, because darn, it does need it, absolutely. And because of acid problems all over the place at the moment, it's not helping anything either. And it's not going to help at all until we return the system back to estuarine. We have to do that so that we can keep up with the acid and we can keep it covered and not put up with what we did during the millennium drought. Yep.
Oh, like I say, with South Australia, I somewhat sort of get a bit annoyed with it, that it's not concentrating on building its own dams or getting its own water system up. And that.
Yeah, Bill, on that, I'll cut in there if you don't mind. We don't have mountains like a lot of people to build those big dams. Yeah, we've got a few reservoirs that just keep us going, but it's not much. You know, our River Murray's just as good as anything. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to dig more holes in the ground to have lakes.
No, one premier some years ago tried that up above Renmark, and he was tipped off. It'll evaporate faster than you can put it in there.
Oh,
Exactly right.
you need the Murray water, but you don't need the waste that washing out the mouth of the Murray.
That's right. Yes, bad enough gargling in the morning.
Do you think, as well, obviously you're seeing since this last lot of water buybacks proposal and that, there's more angst from the growers and that in New South Wales. Do you think there's enough angst and sort of pushback to make the politicians at least talk or have a discussion on it, or are they just so bloody minded that there is no discussion? And the other problem, you're talking about the calibre of politicians, not quite right, but but politicians don't necessarily have to know everything. What they got to do is surround themselves with people who get them the right information and not biased in any way. Like
Bill, you've
the
got
old
it.
day, you had people out in the field who fed into information in
Yes.
the departments to make good decisions. Now you've got people who just come from university with some sort of qualification, get into the bureaucracy and provide information that that suits their textbooks.
Well, you see, it's always a bit narky when you're engaged to assist people in politics to what's happening in your patch, and you do that. You put a lot of effort into it. You supply a lot of documents and so on, and then you find out they haven't read them. This is a fallacy. They must. If you're going to get into politics, you need to know about what's happening. You've set it up yourself. I'm talking to a politician now. Then you follow it through. You read everything. I've had some people untangle themselves because they didn't read all of my A Better Way for the Murray Darling Basin. It's got the full story in there, and those words are supported by the former Murray Darling Basin Commissioner. Absolutely, he was thrilled when he read it. Yeah, I'm proud of it.
We've even got a Prime Minister who doesn't read much. He pushed the voice, but he then admitted that he hadn't read the full statement. So it is a bit of a shortcoming on politicians. But like I say, it needs people around with a lot of practical experience to be able to feed in good information. With your discussions that are probably a little bit, under the rug at the moment, sort of to keeping close to your chest. Do you think the people you're dealing with can have any influence in sort of getting what you propose up and running in it, or have influence to make people at least look at the proposal rather than being closed mind to it?
No, it's a good question, and in fact, I mean, in the district I live in, or the region, I should put it, the Lower Lakes region, there are 4 towns, and I know a lot of the people that live in these towns for all sorts of reasons. We meet sometimes, and sometimes it's just coincidence. But yeah, a greater percentage are scared of what's going to happen if we have another millennium drought, and we've got a government here of really not properly spelling it out of what it's going to do if that acid mobilises again, and it's very likely it will. This is the biggest concentration of acid in Australia, in the biggest lakes, if you like, around Australia. Yeah, that's how bad it is. Over 500 million tonnes of acid soils. And when they decided to test the bottom ends of those lakes, apparently they had 40-foot rods. The rods kept going after 40 feet. We don't know how deep that acid goes down. Yeah, so.
Well, here's the thing. If it was an estuarine system and you're letting the Great Southern Ocean in to keep that level there, you don't have to worry whether the Murray's in drought or not for safeguarding the lower lake.
That's right. And if you know, I mean, this is quite serious. If you know that we are in for a serious drought, or less water in particular, like we're starting to see now, Okay, we've been lucky in the last few months, but boy, we put up a lot with killer, what I call killer sedimentation throughout the whole system, where it's killed the Murray anyway. But there's no need to think that we can keep going on like this. We can't. We've got to move forward. We've got to look after what water we've got. Our first thing to look at is our food security. Get that fixed first, and let's get a few new ideas into Canberra on that too, by the way. And then let's move on and talk to the growers, and let's see where they've been hurt. And a lot of them have been hurt, and a lot of them have moved or passed on. Yes, pretty bad, but that's what's happening.
Well, the thing is, if we can take the lower lakes out of the equation for growers and food production by making it, readily turning it back to an estuarine environment, it does give us a lot more scope to play with in regards to use of that water, rather than just let it feed the lakes.
That's right, Bill. And the fact of the matter is, if we do that, there is a saving of some 2,700 gigalitres of water that can go back up to the growers in any 1 year. And it's probably a little bit more than that. I haven't factored in the water coming off the lofty ranges, but there is some water. I've mentioned some of it in my document, but there's a bit more to it from what I gather. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Look, it's gone over the hour. We'll just wrap it up there. But if you could give us a bit of an idea of the work you'll be doing in the coming months, and maybe in regards to who you're going to try to lobby and get into the conversation as you move forward.
Well, I mean, my desk is just covered in papers, and I'm supposed to be retired. So is my dear wife. We're supposed to be retired. But then again, my wife has a wonderful background. She's a fully fledged artist with a degree in fine art, and she's doing some beautiful stuff down here for people who want to learn art and so on. So she's happy at doing that. So as a result of that, I'm keeping on a little bit more with my water issues and so on. I've reached a stage with a lot of paperwork where storage is becoming a problem. So I have to sort of put the skids on a little bit and slow down. But I guess we all try and do that.
Well, there you go. We don't want anyone to sort of burn out. I mean, you've still got a long way to go with this project, and we wish you all the best. So keep up the conversation with everyone you can, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in New South Wales and Victoria hoping that you can realise, as well as people around the lakes themselves, realise the dream of seeing that an estuarine system once again.
Well, you're quite right, and just to emphasise it a little bit more, we must retain the barrages. We can't do anything else. If we do anything else, we're going to go back to the 1800s and even earlier, where the ocean will come in. It'll force the river further back, and then it'll all go out again. It'll kill the whole area, and so on. It'll put industry out of touch almost completely. It's a ridiculous thing to even contemplate taking the barrages down. They are our gates so that we can regulate the whole Lower Lakes region as a very good estuary business and a place for good commercial fishing too, by the way. Probably one of the best, as it used to be right around Australia. It used to feed Victorian people as well as South Australian people with those wonderful mulloway. That's how good it was.
Okay then, right. If you just stay on the line, I'll just wrap up the show, and I'll speak to you offline. And thank you very much again for your time. It's really been appreciated.
A pleasure, Bill. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed today's show, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook page. And also you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, we're having an extra episode tomorrow night. We're dealing for the next few weeks in addition to our Wednesday program, we'll be having a program on Thursdays, looking and giving an opportunity to candidates of the regional Cairns Regional Council, which is on and about the 16th of March. So for the next couple of weeks on Thursday nights, we'll be talking to candidates from various groups and from various divisions. So join us again tomorrow night, but we'll be back on Wednesday with our normal regional wrap show. Thanks very much.